The O&W was originally planned to go all the way to the Cumberland River from Oneida. It would go by East Jamestown, on up toward Albany, Kentucky, and then on up to the Cumberland River. Economic reasons and other unforeseen obstacles placed in the way of the O&W prevented that. The O&W came to be only from Oneida to Jamestown.
I am a hard-working man, yes, doing the best that I can. I'm easy to please and doing the squeeze. Yeah, I am a hard-working man. My hands is both calloused and worn. There's some fingers that's gone off of one. I'm a rough as a cob, but I do a good job. Yeah, I am a hard-working man. A hard-working man, yes I am. I'm a hard-working man. I'm a salt of the earth all across this great land. Yes, I am a hard-working man.
As the O&W progressed out of Oneida, the first stop would have been at the Tennessee Stave and Lumber Company, which was at Verdun. This is probably where most of the cross ties were made for the O&W Railroad. At Mile 3 was Reed Station, and there was a spur line there. It went to a sawmill that was operated by Grover Pemberton. At Mile 6 was Toomey. There was a telephone shack there, and lumber from Jim Thompson's sawmill was loaded on the train at that point. Beck was 13 miles out of Oneida, and it was across the Big South Fork on the other side, and there was another lumber company there. At Potter, there was a coal mine, and there was two side tracks. Potter was at 14 miles out of Oneida. At Gurnt, at 16 miles west of Oneida, it was one of the busiest stops on the line. They had a section camp there, the railroad did, and it included horses and storage building for the railroad crews. Zenith was 17 miles west of Oneida. It was a mining camp for the Webb Hammock Mine that operated during the 20s and 30s. Probably one of the more profitable mines on the O&W, as they had cannel coal there. And if you know anything about cannel coal, it is really hot burning coal, and you can almost light it using just a match. Christian was a lumber loading point. It was 19 miles west of Oneida. Briar Point was 20 miles out of Oneida. There was a lumber company there around North White Oak Creek. Hagemeyer was named after one of the owners of the O&W. It was a fairly large company that was there, had coal mine operations. That was at 21 miles west of Oneida. At mile 25 was Stockton, which was a coal and lumber loading facility. East Jamestown was at mile 30, and it was the end of the line for quite a while. The railroad was extended on into downtown Jamestown, which was another 7 miles.
On ahead! gentlemen. Bring it down.
When the wheels started slipping when they were pulling out, the brakeman would ask the engineer if he wanted a little sand put on the rails to give them more traction. The engineer would look at the brakeman and say, "Let's give it a couple of more shots here. I think she's getting ready to take a hold."
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time. We gotta
Way back, I guess it was about 50 or 60 years ago. Me and a bunch of my buddies was down here, and we camped out around this place right here. And we got a little hungry, and we had a .22 rifle with us. And I got up one of these trees, I believe it's this one here, and a big carp stuck his head up out of the water, and ping, I got him, and them boys run out there and got him, brought him in. We took our frying pan, greased it up real big, and I believe it's the best fish I ever ate, to be honest.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question, but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
My father was Ziegler Beats, and he was raised on the corner of Highway 27 that is now Lee's Food Mart. That was the old Beats home place, and it was in between the two railroads, so he was always around trains and railroads. And when the O&W was put in, he went to work for them driving the mail bus. And the first one he had looked like a little old car that had been converted before they got the trolley. My earliest remembrances are him coming home with his lunch pail, and there was always this smell of grease. It was in the old machine shop, it was on his clothes, it was just everywhere. But it's a smell that brings back many, many fond memories. I was always around the trains and loved them. As a child, I never liked to wear shoes, and my mother always fussed at me because in the summer it was really hard to keep your feet clean, especially with all the coal soot and dust that was around. I can remember my mother would watch on Monday morning to see when the last train went out, because that was before the days of dryers, and Monday was wash day. So if it was a pretty sunny day, when she saw that last train go out, she knew it was time to hang out her white clothes. Well, occasionally they would have a late train that she wasn't aware of. And as it pulled out, there would be all of this nice black soot that would come blowing up the back yard onto her clothes, and she was not very happy. Our house was right beside the railroad. It's still in Oneida, kind of between the storage building and Amelia's, across from Phillips Drive-In. Another interesting thing was the O&W office was the big brick building that is the Klein building now, where Dr. Burris has her veterinary office. And my daddy was one that didn't believe in letting a car sit out in the weather. So when he bought a 1948 Chevy, he was going to build a garage. The road that is now Beats Avenue was nothing but a little rutted path for the railroad people to get out and check the well by the water tank. And he wanted to build the garage at the back side of our lot there behind the house. So of course the office building was heated with coal, and there were lots of cinders piled outside the office building. So I helped him haul cinders from the O&W office just a few hundred yards to the back of the house and help fill in those ruts. And the town had already said they were going to build a street back through there. And that created a driveway for several years, and he kept it filled with cinders. And he had an old steel wheelbarrow, and he made me a little wooden wheelbarrow. So he would put one shovel of cinders in my wheelbarrow and of course fill his up. But then the treat was, on the way back, I got to ride in my little wheelbarrow in his big wheelbarrow. I always enjoyed listening for the trains and watching for them. And when I was very small, the old trolley bus had been bought and was put on the railroad, and I got to ride from Oneida to Jamestown many days with my daddy and to take mail and passengers. The one treat was to sit up in the window, because the way it was shaped, the middle window was a little bit ahead, it protruded a little bit more than the two side windows. And the engine was under a big tin cover with a wooden frame around it. I wasn't close enough if I sat on the wooden frame, so I'd always try to sit as long as I could on that metal cover. But as with most engines, they get hot, and that cover really began to get warm about the old O&W River Bridge. So I would have to move and go back and sit in a seat back in the trolley car. There was a bell, and the interesting thing, several years ago in New Orleans, I rode the St. Charles Street trolley line, and this bell was on the trolley car. And I asked the conductor, I said, "Do you mind if I ring that? I want to hear it." He looked at me very strange. And I explained to him about the passenger bell on the trolley that we had here. And the sound was very, very familiar. I still have the bell. My dad quit driving the bus and was a brakeman. I would stand down by the railroad and wait for him to come in, because I could hear the train coming, and they'd have to stop at the water tank and fill up with water. Then they would switch, go uptown to switch and come back. They'd stop, or there at the water tank, I would climb in and get to ride the brakeman's seat up into Oneida and back. It was very warm and hot beside the boiler, but that was a very special treat. One of our favorite activities was to go prowling. That was my dad's term for it. And that was just to go over to the machine shop, walk around outside, look for nuts, bolts, any kind of little piece of something that he might use in his workshop. And here again, that strong odor of grease would be in the machine shop. And I vaguely remember one time getting very scared because they had one of the engines completely stripped down. They had the cover off of it. And it didn't look like an engine. It was up over the pit where they were working on it. And he took time to explain, yes, everything's fine. They're having to fix it, and it'll be back like it was in just a few days. When it was decided that the railroad would be abandoned and steel would be pulled, my dad was the one that went over on Sunday nights and fired up the engine to have the fire hot for the next morning so they could go out. And I got to go with him. I would help him. I'd climb up in the engine and do whatever needed to be done. And that was a bittersweet memory, because it wasn't long after that the engines were gone, the trains were gone, and it was very quiet around there except for the Southern Railway, and they were mostly diesel at that time. After the railroad was abandoned, he could not let the old bus go. So he bought it and brought it to the back of the lot beside the garage and made a workshop out of it, and worked there for 10 or more years until his death in 1960. He could repair anything. He repaired lawnmowers, small engines, had a saw filer. This was when you still had hand saws before power saws. And he kept saws sharpened. He even had a shoe shop for a while. But the old bus stayed in the backyard for many years, and then it was sold, and then it came back. Another person got it, and they brought it back to the railroad there behind the old Jellicoe Grocery, which is now the distribution place. And it sat there until it just kind of fell apart, and it was abandoned and sold for scrap. It was a sad day. Several things that I've kept and are very, very special. This was his brakeman's lantern, and as you can see, it's an oil lantern. Still has the wick in it, and it says Oneida Western Railway. So it, with the wooden handle, it was made for the Oneida and Western Railway. A couple of years after the steel was pulled, he knew where all these different things were down along the railroad, and we went down to White Oak, down in behind next to the creek, and picked several flour sacks full of muscadines, and they were very good, wild, big, plump muscadines. And another time, when he was still driving the bus, my mother, myself, and the neighbor, Miss Jackson, that lived across the street from us, rode the bus down to Stockton in Fentress County, and it was early fall. Hazelnuts were beginning to get ripe, and we stayed there while the bus went on into Jamestown, picked up the mail, and then came back and got us. But we got several baskets of hazelnuts that day. So there's just lots of little things that children don't get to do now with adults and grandparents, parents, that were very, very special. And as strange as it may seem, when I started college, not too many automobiles were owned by college students, but the Southern Railway ran from Oneida north and south then. And for the first 2 years, that was my transportation back and forth to Georgetown, Kentucky. And the interesting thing was, Glenn Story was the station master at Georgetown. So he always knew when I came in, well, you're going home this weekend, are you? Yes, I'm going to go home, spend the weekend. I've always had a fascination with trains. I would love to have been an engineer, and I can watch now and think how great it would have been to get to ride those trains and be the one that was steering, in charge of it. But that was not an occupation for a female at the time. It's just always been something I've enjoyed. And as a child, I had a neighbor that got an electric train for Christmas one year. He didn't care a thing about it. And I'd go over and want to play with it. No, let's not play with the train. I would beg for an electric train, but I always got a doll.
Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from the queen of flowing mountains to the South Belle by the shore. She's mighty tall and handsome and known quite well by all. She's the combination on the Wabash Cannonball. She came down from Birmingham one cold December day. As she goes through the station, you can hear all the people say, there's a girl from Tennessee. She's long and she's tall. She came down from Birmingham on the Wabash Cannonball. States are dandies, so the people always say. From New York to St. Louis and Chicago, by the way. From the hills of Minnesota, where the rippling waters fall, no changes can be taken on the Wabash Cannonball. Mighty rush of the engine, hear that lonesome hobo squall. We're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball.